Petter Dutton is the opposition leader. We'll have a longer chat with him down the road, but I wanted to check in with him post-budget, especially the lefty narrative that apparently he was doing a racist dog whistle by asking a rather obvious question. If 1.5 million people are about to come to the country, thanks to Albo in the next couple of years, and we've got queues around the block at the moment for rental units in 2023, where the hell will they live?
Look, it didn't take the Australian public too long to work out. Once they cut through all the spin and all of the Jim Chalmers, talk and charm offensive, that there's not much there for them. This is a welfare budget, which is okay, but for millions of Australians, I really worry that Labor is creating a working poor. And they're saying to many Australians that, we just don't have, out of all the billions of dollars, an extra $185 billion worth of spending. We don't have any support for you. And the crisis that we're seeing at the moment, the fact that interest rates are staying up higher for longer, and the fact that people are paying more and more and more for their electricity and gas bills, that's all of Labor's making. Yet they don't have any solution for families who are really fast becoming Labor's working poor, because they're out there working their guts out, maybe 2 jobs, 3 jobs in some cases, and they just can't balance the budget. They can't pay for their bills and keep their head above water. And I think that's why a lot of Australians are really growing disillusioned with this Prime Minister.
In your budget and reply speech, they couldn't take you on when you pointed out the 12 broken promises. They couldn't take you on when it was the middle class that got screwed over. So the talking point that seemed to reverberate from Labor types to their mates in the media was that there was some sort of spooky racist message when you talk about 700,000 people coming to the country in the next 2 years. But as we all know, there's not enough houses for the people who live here already. The rental market is virtually non-existent in some parts of the country. You mentioned that. Oh, but it was a not-so-subtle dog whistle. So let's be very clear. What were you talking about when you say there's nowhere for somebody to live, there's nowhere for an extra 700,000 people to live?
Well, Paul, it's just a statement of fact. I mean, you see the results of, on the nightly news every night, where people can't get rental accommodation. You can't buy a house. You go to an auction and people are paying massive amounts over the reserve price. I deal in the real world, and Anthony Albanese deals in this sort of rarefied atmosphere of Canberra. He's quickly turned into, a Canberra politician. He's been there for 26 years. I think he's lost touch with the Australian public. The point I make is that if you want to bring people in through the migration program, which we did when we were in government, the Howard government did, the Rudd government did, the Gillard government did, you need to plan for it. We're in the middle of a housing and rental crisis at the moment. You've got a lot of people who are really struggling, and the government's proposing, without any planning, to bring in 1.5 million people over the course of 5 years, which is bigger than the entire population of Adelaide. So let's be sensible and realistic about the discussion. If the Prime Minister wants to prosecute his argument for a big Australia, take it to the election. But he never took it to the last election. And I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear him say that at a time that he's bringing in 1.5 million people over 5 years, he's cutting the infrastructure program. So not only is it a fair question to ask, well, if Australians can't find rental accommodation at the moment, where will the houses be for that 1.5 million coming in? But also, if you're sitting in congestion, coming home from work tonight, or going to work tomorrow, or to drop your kids off to school or to sports, it's a fair question you should ask, well, if there was to be an extra lane put on that road that I went to work on today that was really busy, why is the government cutting that funding back so that the congestion will just get worse and worse? I just think they're fair questions to ask. They're not racist in tone. I mean, it's just a nonsense. And that sort of attacking me as the person, it just gives you a sense of how desperate they are to distract away from the real conversations. And it won't deter me one iota, I promise you. It makes me more determined just to have the conversations that normal families, normal communities are having around the country. And if the Prime Minister's not prepared to stand up and have a debate without all of the name calling, well, I don't think he deserves to be Prime Minister of our country.